Welcome everyone back to Weekly Weather Updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. Then we'll have a look at the longer term outlook with the GFS, GM, ECMWF and GFS Ensembles, and finish up having a look at the UK Met Office 5-day look ahead with precipitation and temperature. We've had quite a cold last few days with a lot of wintry showers around. However, things turned a little bit milder today with a lot of heavy rain with an Atlantic system pulling in. And in the longer term, it's looking like next week we're going to be seeing a lot of high pressure building in with drier, frosty conditions. Temperatures still not exactly decided, but it could be pretty chilly, and it does look like temperatures will be at least below average. And then beyond that, we're starting to see real hints now that it could be a proper colder spell of weather towards the middle of the month, sort of around the 15th to 20th of January. We're seeing quite a lot of support now for at least a period of time where there's a decent chance we see much colder conditions. So we'll have a look at that towards the end of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in description. Also do check out the channel membership. Of course, podcast is coming out on Wednesday for all of those channel members, and of course other exclusive perks. So if we do now have a look at the live radar, you can see we've had a lot of heavy rain pushing through. We've still got some of this heavy rain in the far southeast, still a few of these bands of really quite heavy blustery rain moving through. Further northwards and further westwards, things are turning a little bit dry. Still a lot of cloud around for many. Got a few showers. There will be some clearer spells though eventually, but then the wintry showers push in. Now, the air mass behind this weather front is nowhere near as cold as it has been over the course of sort of Tuesday to Friday. So these wintry showers will be very much confined over the hills, and of course over the hills temperatures will be in around that freezing sort of temperature. However, towards the surface, down towards sea level, very much temperatures are going to be sort of mid-single digits, so nowhere near cold enough for any significant snowfall. And you can see that reflected by the radar. A lot more of these showers are more green than blue, which we saw a lot more blue yesterday and Thursday with that colder air mass. So some wintry showers and some heavier showers moving through. So not really anywhere in the UK seeing any particularly great weather today. One of those classic low pressure westerly days with some wintry showers in the northwest. Now if we do have a look at the GFS outlook, you can see the big low pressure system out towards Iceland is bringing in these westerly winds, really unsettled conditions. However, as I said at the start of the video, things are all going to be changing with higher pressure building in. Now if we do run through, we've still got another batch of low pressure to move through. And again, weather fronts will be pushing into the northwest. However, things could start to be turning much drier, even the southeast, around Tuesday time, with higher pressure building in. Now, one thing I must say is the GFS has actually won out. I know a lot of people in the comments and on Twitter do like to slate the GFS run, because it does give us a lot of those snowier runs, big amplification of the jet stream, big blocking patterns, and we do sort of sometimes sort of push to one side because it does sometimes overdo things. However, for the first time in a while, the GFS actually has outdone the other runs in terms of this high pressure system. A lot of the other models over the last sort of 5 days have kept that high pressure further to the south. However, we're seeing the trend now from most of the models in the ensemble members, unless we see an exceptional flip, which is very unlikely. The high pressure is going to be centred over the top and maybe slightly to our north and our east, which is going to mean more of a continental flow, at least for the southern half of the United Kingdom. And it could give us a scenario where in the northwest it's actually quite a bit milder than the southeast. Temperatures are very variable on the models at the moment because it all depends on exact wind directions and of course what happens with the inversion. Some models are forecasting temperatures to be hovering around freezing in the day with fog patches, freezing fog, stuff like that, and overnight frosts. Others are keeping it around 4 or 5 degrees, anywhere in that sort of range for the middle of next week, whereas further northwards could be 4 or 5 degrees, or it could even get a little bit warm or milder than that, maybe 7 or 8 degrees, with more of a westerly flow as you can see coming around that high pressure. However, beyond that, the high just sits for a couple of days before it does start to fade away. And one thing I must say before we have a look at sort of the mid to extended range of this GFS run, As we'll see with the ensembles at the end of the video, the GFS run, this run, is actually a bit of a mild outlier. So when we see a bit of a northerly wind moving in, this is a milder outlier, especially after this, because this brief northerly wind, it does bring in quite a cold air mass, it does topple, and we see more high pressures and just generally little flip-flopping between milder and colder air mass. It's still under high pressure, so it still would be relatively chilly at the surface, but it won't be anywhere near as cold as snowy as some of the other runs are showing. And right towards the end of the run, we are starting to see easterly winds push in, which would be pretty cold. There is a colder air mass down into Eastern Europe. Wouldn't be brutally cold by any means, but still would be really quite chilly. So this GFS run still shows much colder weather coming in for a couple days around the 15th to the 20th of January. Nowhere near as sustained as some other models are going, but as I said, it is a milder outline as ensembles. So it could be right, of course. It could be more realistic GFS run. But having a look at its ensembles at the end of the video, we'll see that it clearly does push back in milder air masses. I wouldn't say a milder pattern, because we don't see massive low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. Definitely milder air masses, though, in from the northwest, much more quickly than the other ensemble runs, as we'll see at the end of the video. But it does still end on a quite cold blocked note, with high pressures still influencing us with easterly winds. Now, if we do have a look at the GM run, which has been a bit of an outlier today, I must say, it's not following what we've been seeing with the other models, because even the GFS saying that's a little bit of a milder outlier compared to its ensembles, it still is showing cold weather for a time, showing that amplification in the jet stream, that high pressure getting towards Greenland. As we'll see with the GM run, it follows suit until around day 7. As we get towards day 7, you see the high pressure just really topples away, and we stay pretty flat westerly, no amplification in the jet stream, and you can just see mild to the south, cold to the north, flat westerly wind. Still would be chilly, of course, across Scotland with this sort of pattern, but by no means cold for all. So GM still showing there is milder solutions within the models at this stage. But as I said, as we look at the models in sort of the ensemble members and even the ECMWF run in a minute, it very much looks like it's on the milder end of the models today. If we do have a look at the ECMWF run, it has been a little bit more pessimistic over the last few days. We're not showing that amplification as much, but very much today it is going for more amplification. So that's why I'm a little bit more confident between the 15th and the 20th. We could be seeing colder weather. No one say a guaranteed cold spell. I'm not saying it's going to be bitterly cold, but at least colder weather. Similar to what we've had this week, potentially colder than that, with colder air masses available. So if we do move through, you can see high pressure built in, bit of an easterly flow at the surface, chilly, especially under that centre of the high, across the Midlands, Wales, central southern England, even into northern England. Could be really chilly at the surface, even though, as we look at the upper air temperatures, really quite mild. But it's because we get that temperature inversion. Now, beyond that, dissimilar to the GEM run, we see amplification of the jet stream. Now, by no means is it a massive Greenland block, but there's higher pressure, which is shifting that jet stream more amplified, and we're seeing a northerly airflow and pretty cold air starting to fill in by day 10. So, by the 18th of January, the ECMWF run is about to go for a good few day cold spell, and if that Greenland high holds on, could be 5 days plus of cold air. Now, of course, I'm not guaranteeing snow. I'm not saying this is going to be a massive cold spell. I'm just saying that there is a pretty decent chance we see at least northerly winds once again returning, maybe easterly winds, depending on the position of the high pressure, in around that 15th to 20th of January, just simply because we're seeing very, very recurring theme now. Pretty high confidence we're going to be seeing this high pressure amplify the jet stream. The only run not going for it is the GM run, and it has been showing hints over the last few days, so I think it's just a bit of an anomalous run. So if we do have a look at the ECMWF Ensembles, which will show this very well and show you where the ECMWF Ensembles are at with the weather over the next 2 weeks or so. If we do run out to day 7 where the uncertainty does build, you can see they're actually pretty aligned. Around the 15th of January, pretty much all the runs are showing high pressure centres over the UK, just to our north and east, pulling in a bit of a slack easterly flow. Chilly continental airflow, quite cold towards the surface, especially in the south. But yeah, nothing major cold at this stage, and quite high confidence with this now. However, if we do move out to day 10, by the 18th of January, then we see big differences. But none of them are looking mild. That's why I'm pretty confident in saying it's going to be chilly, around average to below average, if not quite a lot colder than average. You can see 15 or 29.4%, which is a small majority, but you can see the others are still 27%, 21%, 21%. So it's a tiny advantage, but it is showing high pressure centre over the UK, similar to what we had previous sort of 5 days before that, and the slack easterly flow. So it'll still be pretty chilly, but nothing crazy in terms of cold weather. Another 14 have high pressure shifting towards Greenland. That would still be pretty dry, but it would be starting to pull in a colder air mass. You see all these blues towards Scandinavia. That's part of the tropospheric polar vortex where there's bitterly cold airs, or minus 10, minus 20 degrees at 850 HPA. We could be pulling some of that sort of air towards the UK. Very low dew points, low thicknesses, and of course upper air temperatures could get down to minus 10 degrees at 850 HPA, or maybe even lower than that, as we'll look with the GFS ensembles in a minute. That definitely would be trending colder. Another 11 have a very similar pattern to that 14, but a little bit more progressive, maybe a day or two ahead. And we see that high pressure in the centre of the Atlantic towards Greenland, and a proper cold northerly wind. Something similar to what we saw with the GFS for a time, but the GFS didn't get this high pressure as far northwards, and it's what we saw with the ECMWF run, with high pressure towards Greenland and that northerly wind coming in. However, the ECMWF run hadn't fully got that northerly wind all the way through, but if we ran on another day or two, it definitely would have got that through. One thing I must say, though, is why I'm confident it will go colder, but maybe not be a sustained sort of 5, 7, 10-day cold spell. It's because if you look at the high pressure, it is centred in the North Atlantic, not over Greenland, which basically means we will be seeing northerly airflows, but at times you can see low pressures right over this, and that's where it could introduce some slightly milder air. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, of course, but that could bring a little bit of a different dynamic to it in sort of the longer term. Another 11 have high pressure trending towards Greenland, similar to the other two, maybe shifted a bit further westwards, which would introduce more of a northwesterly wind and less of a northerly wind. Still be cold, something similar to what we've had now, maybe a little bit colder actually, with more higher pressure ridging towards Greenland. But yeah, cold northwesterly wind would be winteriness around with that as well. So by day 10, most of the ECMWF ensembles are keeping us cold. Some of them are now showing a more wintry scenario, especially these 11 and these two 11 pairs of 11 ensemble members, which are going for more of a low pressure influence in from the north, whereas the others keep higher pressure over the top of the UK. Still cold though, must emphasise that. If you add out to 300 hours, there comes a bit more uncertainty. We see 13, which is a small majority, same as this other selection of ensemble members at 25.5%, with that high pressure toppling. So similar to what the GFS was showing, where low pressure is trying to topple that high pressure, and we still stay with a bit of a northwesterly airflow, but it would be introducing slightly milder air, at least for a period of time, milder sectors, even though the general outlook would still be chilly. It produce milder sectors, so it would break any sustained cold pattern. We see another 13 with high pressure centred to the north and over the UK. That would be not quite as wintry, but it would still be with a chilly northeasterly or easterly flow, but still be quite cold though. Another 12 have high pressure toppled over the top of the UK. Will be similar to where we started over sort of next week, with chilly air mass over the top of the UK, cold inversion towards the surface, even if that air mass isn't quite as cold. We see another 8 showing something quite peculiar. We haven't seen this in a few days. Is a proper Scandinavian high going. That's come out of the model output over the last few days, but we're seeing it from 8 ensemble members here with bitterly cold easterly winds. But once again, you can see the tropospheric polar vortex, or at least a bit of it, returns to Greenland, which would really be trying to strain this with quite a quick jet stream coming out of northeast Canada. Another 5, including the control run, with proper Greenland blocking. That would be a sustained cold spell with that low tropospheric polar vortex that was over Scandinavia, dropping down over the United Kingdom, and that would be bringing really cold and really snowy weather. Again, only 9.8% of the ensemble members, but it is an option at this stage. And if we go right to the end of the run, have a look at 360 hours, you can see quite a number of different scenarios. I'll go through these quickly because there's quite varied scenarios here. Flat westerlies with 13, another 13 just have high pressure centre over the top of the UK, chilly conditions, another 12 low pressure to our north, high pressure to our south. That would be quite an amplified jet stream, but we'd be on the milder end. As you can see, it dropping a bit further southwards, just to the west of the UK would be milder southwesterly winds. Another 8 have high pressure over the top and extending to our east. We'll be trying to pull in an easterly wind, but difficult to say exactly what temperatures we'll be seeing. That depends on how much Atlantic influence. Another 5 have Greenland blocking an Atlantic ridge, and still with cold air over the top of the UK, including the control run, and that's that really cold, wintry view ensemble run. So we'll have to keep an eye, of course, what happens with this, but we're definitely seeing an increased confidence in seeing an amplified jet stream around the 15th to 20th of January with high pressure, trying to get towards Greenland, not being amazingly successful in the latest runs, but it still does pull in a good few days of colder conditions, and of course some evolve it to stay cold and wintry, others just evolve it to stay cold, and of course some in the longer term go milder and westerly. So definitely does look chilly, but exactly how it does play out, we'll have to see. And it's shown really well on the GFS Ensembles. You can see sort of flip-flopping between temperatures at the moment as we've got milder, colder sectors coming in. But around the next sort of 3 days, as we head towards sort of Tuesday, Wednesday time, high pressure will be really taking control. You can see that real mild upper air conditions, but towards the surface it's going to be quite chilly. And then we see a big downwards trend in temperatures around the 15th, 16th of January. A big downwards trend. You can see the operational GFS run there. One of the milder scenarios. You can see it does drop down temporarily quite cold. Still brings a bit of a northerly wind in for a time, but then it goes really quite mild. It's on the milder end of these ensemble runs and stays well above that average line of the ensemble members. The majority are cold. Now, of course, some are only going down to -4, -5, -6 degrees at 850 HPA, which would be chilly, similar to the air mass we've had over the last few days. So low single digits for many, snow likely over hills, and for a time maybe over low-lying areas. Others are going into the freezer, so -8, -10 degrees at 850 HPA. Quite a few there, so we can't rule that out, which is a proper sort of colder spell. But then others are staying around average or slightly above average, but those are very much in the minority. So there definitely is a big cooling trend that we have seen consistently within the ensembles over the last few days. But exactly what is causing it is difficult to say at this stage. But definitely look like we're going to see high pressure ridge towards Greenland, at least transient northerly wind, bringing in at least a few days of cold weather. But it depends on how long that high pressure stays in the North Atlantic and towards Greenland. We'll decide how long we see colder air. But it definitely does look pretty chilly in the longer term. Now, if we have a look at the dew points, which is very important for determining air masses towards the surface, you can see cold from 12th, 13th of January. Dew point around freezing or below freezing. It's not too unusual for January to be seeing this, but considering the real mild weather we have had prior to this week, it is a nice sign seeing proper sort of January conditions are going to be here with low dew points. And of course, dew points have to be below freezing to be seeing wintry conditions and snow, sleet, whatever to be falling out of the sky. So you need those dew points below freezing, and you can see the average is around or below freezing. If you have a look at 2 meter temperatures, which is quite important as well, you can see the majority of the runs are keeping temperatures in the mid to low single digits over the next few weeks, which is around average to below average for London. For example, London in January, average high temperatures is around 6 to 7 degrees in London. So you can see over the next few days we're going to be sort of up and down, maybe a day or two at 5 or 6 degrees, and then maybe a day or two at 8 or 9. So next few days are going to be coming around maybe a slight above average. But as we head towards the middle of the next week, with inversion taking place, you can see those temperatures starting to drop around 4-5 degrees for the average, and staying around that, if not dropping a little bit lower. But of course, it is getting some milder and colder outliers that could push it up or down. So I have to take those into perspective. But it still does look pretty chilly in the longer term, and it's something we really need to keep an eye on. Of course, having a look at new snow depth, quite a big trend, I must say, in the longer term, for London especially, for quite a few snow spikes in around, as I said, 16th, 17th, all the way to 20th, 1st of Jan. So that's the period now I'm very much looking at for any colder wintry weather. If you are looking forward to that as well, this is the period now we're looking at for the next potential colder wintry weather. Up until then, it's looking quite wet and windy over the next couple of days before high pressure, chillier conditions take hold. And if we do finish up finally, have a look at the UK Met Office Run, have a look at precipitation and temperature. You can see over the course of the day a lot of precipitation moved through, heavy rain, and that rain is moving through in the far southeast at the moment. We've got a lot of showers and wintry showers pushing in from the west at the moment, and those will slowly fade away this evening. Maybe continue still across the northwest, but eventually we see another weather front pushing in by tomorrow afternoon into the evening. Not a massive weather front, but could bring some thicker clouds, some sort of rain for some, and then eventually before midweek we see high pressure build in. A few showers in the north around that high, but towards the centre of the UK. Pretty dry, some patchy cloud, maybe some thicker cloud for some, but it will be pretty chilly as we see with the temperatures in a minute. Now, if we do have a look at the temperatures, you can see earlier this morning it was really quite cold, but milder has moved through. So by this course this afternoon, it's widely sort of 5 to 7 degrees for many low-lying areas. Toward the north and west, where we're starting to see wintry showers push in, more like 3, 4, 5 degrees. For tomorrow afternoon, or tonight, it's still going to be quite a cold night, not pretty cold. We're going to see some frost here or there, but nothing too crazy. And by tomorrow afternoon, we'll see temperatures getting around 5 to 7 degrees. So around average for many, if not a little bit below average in the north. Tomorrow night, pretty chilly, especially in the north, maybe in the far south, but we're seeing cloud building and much milder conditions. For Monday afternoon, temperatures maybe widely 6 to 7 in the east, maybe 10, 11, 12 in the west, so really quite mild. But by Tuesday, overnight frost in the north, still a bit mild in the south, and by Wednesday, early morning, widespread frost in the Midlands, Northern England, and parts of Ireland. You can see no frost in the north of Scotland, and that's because we've got more mixing air coming in from the west. So you can really see those cold temperatures centred in the centre of the country. And by Wednesday afternoon, under that inversion, 2, 3, 4 degrees across central England, southern England. Again, far south coast, we see maybe some sea breezes, maybe get up to 6 or 7, so around average. But for Scotland, it could be even colder in central England towards the London area than it is in many parts of Scotland, where we see more of a westerly influence. And then by early hours of Thursday, bitterly cold over the course of England, Wales, maybe parts of southeast Ireland, but pretty mild in the north. So you can see really what I've been saying with this version. If you're under the centre of that high, we could be seeing really quite cold temperatures coming up. So yeah, we'll have to see, of course, how it does play out next week. There will be big changes coming next week. Big contrasts as well. Could be quite mild or around average to above average in the north, and could be quite chilly, if not quite cold, in the south. But it does look pretty dry for all. Before wintry hazards could potentially return in around 7 to 10 days' time. But of course, there is a lot of uncertainty with that, and as I've shown you in this video, there is definitely a cold trend, definitely looking around the 15th to 20th of January, but there's no concrete sort of forecast at this stage. You just got to stay tuned to the videos and, of course, weather warnings from the Met Office, as I'm sure they'll be issuing more over the coming weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.